You've found just stories, simple, heartfelt moments from real lives, stories that remind us how connected we all are through love, loss, and hope. Get cozy. The stories are about to begin. On one muggy July evening, as the sun was already setting, Olivia Miller felt a strange numbness. It struck her suddenly while she was quietly grumbling and sorting through her husband's bag. Arthur had returned the day before from a sanatorium where he had been staying with his mother. Honestly, the man's 30, but still acts like a little kid, Olivia thought, going through his things. I have to finish everything for him. Eleanor Victoria must have slipped in her dirty laundry so she could travel back light. These thoughts were habitual, part of her daily routine. Arthur, engrossed in the action of a blockbuster on screen, heard neither her grumbling nor the surprised cry that escaped her chest. The cry was quiet, almost a whisper, but in Olivia's head, a loud, deafening scream of despair and realization erupted. Well, isn't that just great? The thought flashed through her mind. Well, isn't that just naive little me? An ideal family life? Here you go, sign for the betrayal. Among her mother-in-law's things, she found a piece of underwear that could in no way belong to the stout Eleanor Victoria. This discovery became the key that opened Olivia's eyes to long, simmering suspicions. Like scattered pieces of a complex puzzle, all the oddities of the past few months suddenly fell into place, revealing a frighteningly clear picture. Arthur was cheating on her, hiding behind flimsy excuses, basely betraying their 7-year relationship. He had disregarded her feelings, their seemingly happy marriage where they had overcome difficulties together and rejoiced in each other's successes. Even the absence of children, which worried both mothers, they considered only a matter of time, as Olivia was only 18 when she got married. Thoughts of starting a family had only recently begun to appear, but Arthur avoided the topic. She herself was too shy to talk about it, even to hint. But now the question of children faded into the background. A much more acute and painful problem had emerged. Her first impulse was to burst into the room and stage a grand scandal with her husband, slapping him across the face with the discovered evidence. However, the initial furious impulse quickly subsided when Olivia realized she was still holding someone else's underwear. A feeling of disgust overwhelmed her. She crumpled the item that had become a symbol of betrayal and forcefully threw it back into the bag. Her old basketball hobby paid off. The evidence landed exactly where it had been taken from. Suddenly, Olivia found it hard to breathe, as if the air had left her lungs. Overcoming the pain in her chest, where the wound of betrayal had just formed, she took a few steps towards the washing machine in the kitchen and sank to the floor, strengthless. What if Arthur wasn't to blame? Maybe her mother-in-law accidentally picked up someone else's underwear, mistaking it for a roommate's item. Anything can happen, especially if the room is cramped or the closet is shared. Relations with Eleanor Victoria had improved recently, but Olivia had absolutely no desire to call her and find out the reason for this strange discovery. For some reason, she felt awkward, as if she herself was somehow at fault. Loud sounds from the movie drifted from the room, making it difficult to concentrate and calmly think about what to do with her husband and how to punish him if her suspicions were confirmed. Olivia began meticulously reviewing every moment that had recently troubled her soul. The most unsettling were Arthur's frequent absences. For about a month, he had been spending almost all his free time without her, explaining it with strange reasons. Individually, these reasons might have seemed perfectly valid, but there were too many of them. He said he was going to the Dhaka to water the beds, staying late at work with the boss's permission, helping a friend, or participating in a corporate team-building event. In the last 2 weeks, a suddenly intensified sense of filial duty had been added to this. While Eleanor Victoria was resting in the sanatorium, Arthur went to her apartment every other day to water the flowers. He explained that in the heat, the apartment turned into a sauna, and his mother's beloved plants might die. Yet Eleanor Victoria herself had never cared for her violets with such trepidation. Now, Olivia clearly saw the strangeness of his behavior. Usually the flower care fell on her shoulders. but not this year. Arthur, hugging her, said that she was already tired, and these chores were no burden to him. Olivia even suggested moving the flowers to the bathroom, where it was cooler, and turning on grow lights, but her husband resisted this reasonable suggestion, citing the danger of water and electricity unsupervised. Olivia was very worried and didn't know what to do next. She desperately needed outside advice, but there was no one to turn to. The most obvious, but completely unacceptable option was to call her mother. Upon learning of the suspicions, her mother would get upset, start taking valerian drops, and her blood pressure would rise. No, she absolutely could not worry her mother. Olivia didn't have any close girlfriends with whom she could discuss such a delicate topic. Acquaintances, of course, she had plenty of, friendly and welcoming women, but she wouldn't dare share family problems with any of them. It would cause unnecessary pity, and worse, could lead to a leak of personal information. Her reputation as a happy and prosperous woman could go downhill. The general director of her company had a strange quirk. Key positions were only held by those who, in his opinion, had a good personal life, as harmony at home positively affected work. After a divorce or serious troubles, employees were transferred to other positions, albeit without a loss in salary. Olivia didn't want such changes, so she understood that she would have to manage on her own, relying only on her own mind. Gray spots danced before Olivia's eyes, a sure sign of an impending migraine. The woman winced. That's all she needed now. If the migraine took hold, she would be incapacitated for a couple of days, and tomorrow there was an important meeting with the commercial director. Everything was so ill-timed, and all because of this discovery, damn it. Or, more precisely, because of Arthur and his possible infidelity. As if summoned by her thoughts, the culprit of her headache appeared in the kitchen. He acted completely calmly, as if nothing had happened. He turned on the kettle, made himself sandwiches, glanced briefly at his bag, and addressed his wife. "Olivia, just leave the chores," he said. "I'm going to Mom's tomorrow. I'll throw everything in her washing machine there, so I don't have to lug it back and forth. And anyway, let's go watch the movie. It's really good. I didn't even expect it." Arthur began enthusiastically recounting the plot. But Olivia interrupted him, unable to listen to idle chatter after the shock she had experienced. "No, thank you," she replied. "I think I'll just lie down here. I'm a bit tired. It was a tough Monday." "Okay," Arthur agreed. "Then I'll turn the volume down. And don't turn on the washing machine. How can you rest with its noise? Should I turn off the light?" Olivia nodded, feeling another wave of pain in her temples. She had absolutely no desire to talk to her cheating husband. Arthur placed the tray of food on the table, picked up the bag, and left the kitchen, closing the door behind him. In the darkness, the headache receded slightly, and the woman didn't even notice falling asleep on the sofa. In the morning, Olivia woke up with a light heart, mentally thanking the migraine, which apparently decided to spare her. The night's rest had been surprisingly beneficial. Even the certainty of her husband's infidelity had faded, replaced by a more plausible, as it now seemed to her version, that the strange underwear had accidentally gotten mixed in with her mother-in-law's things. She stretched sweetly on the sofa, glad she had insisted on buying it, and began getting ready for work, preparing breakfast. Arthur, as usual, overslept. By the time he appeared in the kitchen, Olivia had already finished breakfast, left him food, and was ready to leave. "Olivia, don't expect me home early this evening," he announced. "I'll stop by Mom's right after work, do the laundry, and check on the flowers. She won't forgive me if anything happens to her green pets." Jealousy and resentment pricked her heart again. Olivia almost recoiled when Arthur, as always, came to kiss her, but she managed to endure the usual morning ritual. She hurried to work, trying to focus on routine tasks before the meeting, but her thoughts kept returning to yesterday's find in her husband's bag. At the meeting, the commercial director commented, "Olivia, are you not interested in the topic of our meeting at all?" "Why, Alexander Basil, I'm listening very attentively," she replied, trying to hide her agitation. "Strange," he noted. "You have such a faraway look, as if you're somewhere very distant." Knowing perfectly well what was expected of her, Olivia recounted several key points from his speech. A satisfied Alexander Basil interrupted her and continued talking, at length and ramblingly. While he was talking in circles, Olivia made a firm decision to follow her husband. Fortunately, her workday ended earlier, and setting up an ambush near her mother-in-law's house was not difficult. The yard was a dead end, with a single road leading to it, at the turn of which was a cafe with panoramic windows. From a good vantage point, there was a perfect view, and there was no need to worry about Arthur stopping by such a cafe for pastries. You couldn't drag him in there even with a lasso. After the decision was made, Olivia calmed down a bit and hardly thought about her husband's infidelity for the rest of the workday. Only towards evening did she start to tremble slightly. After all, it was an unusual undertaking. You don't engage in secret surveillance every day. To be precise, it was her absolute debut in this field. In the cafe, Olivia ordered berry juice and a pastry that the saleswoman actively praised. Only now, sitting by the window and waiting for her husband, did she realize that, absorbed in her worries, she had completely forgotten to have lunch. The strawberry filling was surprisingly tasty, and the wait became less agonizing. Noticing her husband's car driving past the cafe, Olivia continued her observation. Following him was not difficult. Arthur parked in the lot, retrieved a sports bag from the back seat, and without looking back, entered his mother-in-law's building. A few minutes later, the light came on in her kitchen windows. Olivia froze, waiting. If Arthur had a date, his lover should appear soon. On the summer evening, the street was crowded, as one could cut through the quiet yard. Olivia's heart skipped a beat every time attractive women walked past the entrance. However, they all walked past. Only a few boys with scooters entered the building. Hidden by passers-by and overgrown lilac bushes, Olivia saw the light in the window go out, and soon her husband came out of the entrance alone, with a visibly empty bag. It seemed he was just waiting for the washing machine to finish. Apparently, no one had come to see him. Olivia couldn't believe that the lover homewrecker might live in this same modest Khrushchev-era building. It was too unlikely a scenario, perhaps only fit for a cheap, melodramatic TV series. Her debut in surveillance, it seemed, had not yielded the desired result. Despite the unsuccessful debut in surveillance, Olivia decided to continue observing her husband for a few more days. The task turned out to be not so difficult. At least I'll bring clarity to this situation, she thought. It's okay that I don't have experience and he might notice me. I'll explain somehow. Morning surveillance on Wednesday didn't happen. Although the fact that her husband woke up at the crack of dawn to go to the dacha was suspicious, Olivia simply couldn't take time off work. In the evening, Arthur went straight home after work, which somewhat reassured her. Thursday also brought Olivia no compromising information. Moreover, during these days Arthur only visited his mother once, as if he felt he was being watched. However, Olivia understood it was too early to relax. Who knows what schedule her husband has for meeting his lover, if she even exists. Mentally scolding herself, Olivia didn't even check her husband's phone. There were so many numbers in the call history, including recurring ones, that none of them stood out. Reading messages and messengers also yielded nothing. Olivia knew about online chats with disappearing messages, but the smartphone's browser history didn't show visits to such sites. Realizing that she was just an amateur, not a trained professional, Olivia decided to go all in and try to disrupt her husband's supposed meeting with his lover. On Friday evening, she suggested, "Arthur, we've been staying home too much. Maybe we could spontaneously go on an excursion somewhere, a weekend getaway route." Arthur smiled guiltily and spread his hands. "No, Olivia. I'm sorry. I'm going to Mom's on Saturday, you understand. I'll come back tired, won't be up for walks. Sunday is also impossible. I've agreed to go to football with colleagues. Look at the stadium they've built, like a spaceship. We have to see inside, see what our taxes are being spent on." Olivia felt in her bones that her husband was lying to her. His evasiveness and constant excuses only confirmed her suspicions. So, her assumptions were correct. The meeting with the lover was scheduled for the weekend. The woman decided to see it through. Listen, that's just wonderful, Olivia exclaimed, trying to inject enthusiasm into her voice. I'll go with you to Eleanor Victoria's. It feels a bit awkward. She's returning from the sanatorium in just a week, and I haven't visited her once. After the sanatorium, we can drive around the area, and that'll be our spontaneous getaway. Arthur tried to dissuade his wife. Olivia, you weren't feeling well at the beginning of the week. I think you need to rest. But Olivia was persistent. Arthur, it's just improper not to visit your mother-in-law even once. Besides, I really need a change of scenery. Olivia hoped she would manage to get a look at her mother-in-law's neighbor. She was very determined and insisted on the trip to Arthur's mother's. Eleanor Victoria was genuinely happy to see both her son and daughter-in-law. They had a wonderful time strolling along the well-kept paths of the sanatorium, laid out among majestic trees. Even the summer heat seemed less exhausting in the dappled shade. Quick, reddish squirrels, tamed by visitors, comically leaped along the branches and descended to people for treats. Eleanor Victoria brought sunflower seeds and nuts, holding them out to Arthur and Olivia. Try feeding these little creatures yourselves. They are so funny. They use their paws just like hands. The squirrels fearlessly descended to the outstretched palms, delicately took the treats, and ate neatly, looking with intelligent eyes. By one of the paths, Eleanor Victoria introduced a woman she met to her daughter-in-law. Olivia, this is Annie, my roommate. The lady of almost immense proportions smiled warmly. Olivia's heart sank with disappointment, nearly bringing tears to her eyes. The hope that the item of women's clothing found in her husband's bag belonged to her mother-in-law's roommate was shattered. That item clearly could not belong to this woman. Trying not to betray her disappointment and growing anger, Olivia continued the walk. Not a trace of the former serenity remained. After saying goodbye to Eleanor Victoria, the couple left the sanatorium grounds. Arthur, completely oblivious to his wife's changed mood, suggested, "Well, shall we go around the area, as we planned?" "Oh, Arthur, I think I've had enough walking," Olivia replied, trying to hide her irritation. "Let's just go home. I'm kind of worn out too. And you have football tomorrow. You need to save your energy. You're not old yet, but you already have to." Annoyed, Olivia couldn't resist a jab. "Yeah, you're getting old, and it looks like my husband is getting decrepit too." Arthur ignored her displeased tone. He wasn't even bothered that Olivia barely spoke to him on the way home, attributing it all to her fatigue. Olivia deemed her surveillance activities crucial. If he had a lover, and he was supposedly going to football, which he had never been a fan of, it meant he was clearly going on a date. In the morning, Arthur got up very early, before his wife, and woke her with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. When she entered the kitchen, he had almost finished breakfast. "Well, my dear, I'm off," he said. Olivia remarked sarcastically, "Isn't it a bit early? As I recall, the football match starts in the evening." The man tried to speak calmly and convincingly. "Well, first we'll gather, chat, and then we'll go to the stadium." Olivia decided not to be sarcastic anymore so as not to arouse suspicion, and asked, "Are you walking or driving?" "Driving," he replied. "I'm not planning to drink, and I don't want to bother with taxis or public transport. It's calmer for me. I'm my own boss." "Okay, I understand," Olivia said, trying to speak as calmly as possible. "Then I'll get to the beauty salon myself. It's fine. Have a good time." She felt that her husband didn't even suspect that she didn't trust him and was planning to follow him. The parking lot was a 5-minute walk from the house, and as soon as Arthur closed the door, Olivia called a taxi and quickly got dressed. The driver wasn't surprised by the passenger's haste. The man drove confidently, keeping a short distance behind her husband's car. The driver, repeating Arthur's maneuver, turned into the parking lot near the supermarket and, choosing a good spot for observation, turned off the engine and continued his story. "So, my wife says she's going to the store again. And I think she's running to the children's home for the mentally disabled. Her child lived there. She put him there because it was difficult for her, and only someone who has faced such a misfortune can judge her. Well, back then I was like, in a white coat playing the saintly martyr. I almost went crazy. How could this be? They kept such a thing secret from me. Both Lucy and her mother were silent. I caught my wife at the gates of that home and made a scene. She didn't even try to justify herself, just said she knew we'd divorce anyway. And whether it was because of the truth or the lie, what difference does it make? The driver, without asking permission, lit a cigarette and continued his confession, ignoring the growing column of ash. I don't know what I would have done if she had told me the truth right away when we were dating. Maybe I wouldn't have married her. Or maybe, on the contrary, I would have asked her to introduce me to the child. Now I think I could have understood everything, if only Lucy had been honest with me. But no, it was easier for her to deceive me. What would you have done in my place? Could you have forgiven her? Olivia didn't know how to answer the taxi driver correctly, but her husband's appearance at the store entrance with 2 huge bags saved her from having to express her opinion, especially since it wouldn't have been absolution for the man anyway. Arthur, not expecting to be followed, didn't look around, quickly walked to the car, put the groceries in the trunk, and drove on. The taxi driver, keeping a short distance, followed him. He said nothing more, apparently reliving past events. The car turned off the highway onto a road perfectly familiar to Olivia. Another 12 kilometers from the turn and the energetic garden cooperative would appear. Eleanor Victoria had been allocated her legal 600 square meters there back in Soviet times. Olivia used to go there when she wasn't even engaged yet, just starting to date Arthur. Eleanor Victoria didn't burden her with much work back then. And even now she preferred to take care of the greenhouse and the rest of the plantings herself. She hadn't grown potatoes on her plot for a long time, using the freed-up space for berry bushes. She had honeysuckle, strawberries, currants, raspberries, and gooseberries there. How could a devotee of Chekhov's talent be without them? The newly appeared cuckold, turning on his blinkers, turned towards the dacha area. Continuing the surveillance by taxi was too risky. She could be noticed. Olivia asked the taxi driver to stop and, after paying, hurried towards her mother-in-law's plot. Good luck, the driver wished her. Olivia hurried to her mother-in-law's plot and saw Arthur drive the car behind the gate. She quickly made her way to the overgrown lilac bush near the abandoned dacha diagonally opposite, which offered a good view. Fortunately, her mother-in-law hadn't yet replaced the low picket fence on the street side with a solid metal profile, and everything was in plain sight. Olivia almost screamed with anger when a woman in a crop top and shorts flitted onto the porch of the dacha house. The stranger's physique clearly indicated that she could well be the owner of that very unfortunate find from Arthur's bag. Smiling, the lover took one of the bags from Arthur. It was obvious they knew each other, but the words they exchanged were indistinguishable. The deceived woman left her hiding place and headed towards the dacha to stage a loud scandal for the neighbors' amusement with her traitor husband and his companion. But she froze in place. Her father, Peter Michael, appeared on the porch. The very man who, 3 years ago, had basely announced to her mother that he had met and fallen in love with another woman. He said that his daughter was already grown up and nothing else held them together, so he was leaving, taking the family savings as compensation for half of the apartment bought during the marriage. Olivia tried to influence her father then, persuading him not to act rashly, begging him to think about the blow he was inflicting on the wife he had lived with for so many years. She threatened to cut off all communication if he destroyed the family. It was all useless. Peter Michael abandoned his wife and tried to maintain contact with his daughter, congratulating her on holidays. But Olivia blocked his number, and then all the others he called from. Soon, her father stopped trying to contact her. Meeting his former colleague, Olivia learned that Peter Michael had quit his job and moved out of the city somewhere. Veronica Stephen probably would have gone mad if not for her daughter's support, who practically moved in with her for several months, making sure she didn't do anything to herself. It's not easy to forget happy years of marriage erased by infidelity. Her mother sobbed on Olivia's shoulder. Can you imagine he said he met the love of his life? And who was I to him then? Just a passerby? An incubator for his only daughter? Learning this unexpected news and seeing her mother in such a state for the first time, Olivia was in shock. She had always considered her parents' marriage unshakable, as solid as a rock. However, it turned out that all the years of family life could be easily erased with a single word. Olivia felt a weight lift from her heart when she saw how tenderly her father embraced the woman she didn't know, how he kissed her shoulder, and how readily he took the bag from her. It was obvious that this was the very homewrecker, or in his own words, the love of his life. Arthur calmly watched this scene, and soon the trio headed into the house. They didn't close the door, and Olivia followed them inside, greeting them with a voice ringing with indignation. "Hello, private company." She saw astonished faces. Arthur was the first to react. "Olivia, how did you get here?" "Oh, I was just sitting at home, bored," Olivia replied. "I thought, let me go to the football match with my husband, too. And here it's some kind of tango for three, not a match from behind the bushes." "Olivia, daughter, hello," Peter Michael exclaimed, remembering himself. "I'm very happy to see you. Please meet Sophia, little Sophia. And this is my daughter, dear Olivia, my pride. This is the one I told you so much about." Olivia managed to see that the woman in the top and shorts was roughly her age, and she didn't stand on ceremony. "So, this is her. The love of your life? The golden hand, leg? Or what part of her body captivated you?" "I can't say it's nice to meet you because I'm disgusted to see her and you, Arthur, and you've really disappointed me greatly. I would never have thought you'd be entertaining your father-in-law's mistress and his girl at your mother's dacha." "Don't you dare talk about Sophia like that," Olivia's father protested. "Oh, as if she's a delicate little violet," Olivia retorted. "By the way, Sophia, didn't you lose your pants out of squeamishness? My dear Arthur apparently picked them up by accident along with some dirty towels. Is it inconvenient to wash them here, or is little Sophia afraid of overworking her golden hands?" Peter Michael demanded, "Olivia, stop it. Enough of your malicious talk. Your husband is helping us at my request, and there's nothing wrong with that. He is a wonderful and responsive person. He is acting mercifully. Showing callousness and malice towards an innocent person is low." "Well, I'd be embarrassed to call your Sophia innocent," Olivia persisted. "To steal a husband from a strong and prosperous family, to force him to quit a decent job with a stable income, to compel him to live not in a comfortable apartment, but in a dacha house with a bio-toilet and a shower from a tank. Dad, by the way, is no longer in the prime of youth. Yes, indeed, nothing to say. It turns out that Sophia is just a champion at improving conditions. Maybe she should even get a medal for contributing to a happy approach to the grave." Peter Michael's lover was clearly uncomfortable, but she remained silent. Olivia's father also didn't interfere in his daughter's angry monologue, which had shifted the focus of her anger to her husband. It became clear to her that her mother-in-law's dacha had become a refuge for the lovers. Arthur lowered his eyes, and no further verbal response was needed from Olivia. It became obvious to her that her husband hadn't cheated on her with another woman, but he had behaved not much better. With Eleanor Victoria's permission, either out of a sense of male solidarity or for other reasons, he had been enabling his father-in-law and his companion. "You secretive things!" Olivia gasped. "How long have you been hiding this dacha haven for lovers from me? A month? More?" "Daughter, calm down and let's talk," Peter Michael suggested. "It's not so simple." "Yes, I bought all sorts of goodies," Arthur announced, placing the bags on the table. "Indeed, let's discuss everything at the table." Olivia didn't miss the opportunity to speak out once more about the hated destroyer of her parents' family. "I will not sit at the same table with this golden-legged Sophia." The young homewrecker shrugged and said, "Peter, I'll go take care of the plantings and pick some berries. Call me if you need help." Arthur gently touched his wife's hand and pleaded, "Don't be angry, Olivia. I couldn't have acted differently. After all, Peter Michael isn't a stranger, and anyway, he's done a lot of good things for us." Olivia pulled her hand away and, without hesitation, began to scold him. "Yes, Dad did a lot of good things. I barely saved Mom after his betrayal. I was afraid she would do something bad, leave me an orphan, and all because of this Sophia. Turns out he found himself quite a catch." Peter Michael, taking food out of the bags, set the table and remained silent. The man knew perfectly well that his daughter had a quick temper, but calmed down easily. He just needed to let her vent. Sighing, Olivia sank into her favorite armchair in her mother-in-law's dacha house and addressed her father. Well, tell me, newlywed, how did you end up living in the countryside? It was almost impossible to get you to visit the dacha before. And here, I understand, you've been living for a month, and for some reason you're hiding and all that. Peter Michael smiled slightly. You really are smart. You figured it all out right away. Sophia and I actually have to hide. We got into a very unpleasant, terrible situation. Now we have to hide from creditors. Olivia was extremely surprised. How? You were always a fierce opponent of loans. The man shrugged. Well, even old women slip up. That's how it happened. When I left your mother, Sophia and I moved to her city. We bounced around rented apartments there. I did odd jobs, saved money to buy a small house within the city limits and start my own business. We even rented a suitable place that was very popular with the target audience. People came to us, but while we were in limbo, there was no talk of modest advertising or a loud PR campaign. Sophia and I decided to formalize everything, buy this house with the plot, and seriously develop the business on a proper scale, not just haphazardly, Peter Michael continued. I had little money left. It disappeared somehow unnoticed. Sophia suggested borrowing from her acquaintances. Then everything happened like in a bad crime movie. We were robbed on the way to the deal. The car Sophia was driving with her friend's power of attorney was cut off. The fender was slightly dented, but at least we weren't injured. Oh, Olivia, if you had seen how Sophia defended me, you would never have called her bad names. She threw herself at the bandits like a tigress. She screamed and even threatened that if they touched me even with a finger, they wouldn't get anything at all. It was so brave, so sincere, but so reckless. I was truly scared for Sophia then, and I think I loved her even more. I understand that because of your mother it might be unpleasant for you to hear this, but I don't want to lie to you. In short, they put moral pressure on us and named a debt amount that was completely outrageous. So we had to, as they say, flee the city. There weren't many options for where we could hide. We just need to get by until Sophia's friend, who has connections in high places, returns from her trip to India, her father explained. She went there for enlightenment. One of the main conditions her guru set was a complete break from her usual reality, an absolute rejection of all forms of connection with the past. So I had to turn to Arthur as the closest person. I felt very awkward. If it weren't for him, it's unknown whether I'd be alive now or not. I'm very glad that my son-in-law agreed to solve our problem with housing and providing us with everything necessary. A big thank you to Eleanor Victoria, too, even a huge one. She understood our situation and allowed us to stay here. No one will think to look for us here, so we can relax a bit. I understand that Sophia and I are essentially a heavy burden on your family's budget, but I promise, as soon as our situation improves, I will return everything. Peter Michael spread his hands, indicating that he expected no compensation. Olivia clarified, Make a fool of yourself, Dad? And couldn't you have gone to the police? If these bandits damaged the car, especially someone else's, and tried to intimidate you, then they should be held accountable. There must be some authority over them. I think you absolutely must file a report. Of course, a hot pursuit investigation won't work now, but you have to fight this lawlessness somehow. Oh, Olivia, how naive you still are, her father sighed. Sophia said that their local police station is completely corrupt. If you go to them, you could lose your health, or even your life, without trial or investigation. Olivia didn't give up. But aren't there supervisory bodies above the police? The prosecutor's office or something like an internal affairs department? It's better not to go to them either, Peter Michael replied. It's like wading into water without knowing the depth. For a proper result, you still need to have a direct contact with someone on the staff. Then the case won't stall. When Sophia's friend returns, then we can try. But for now, we have to lie low quietly. So, these are the things, dear Olivia. In my old age, I've ended up in such a mess that I wouldn't wish it on an enemy. Thank you. Your husband and his mother have been merciful to Sophia and me. Otherwise, I'd probably be rotting somewhere buried like a dog by now. Peter Michael spoke like a weary man, not at all like a happily enamored one. Somehow, the resentment for her mother faded into the background. She didn't feel like being sarcastic or talking about the boomerang that had returned. After all, this man with anxiety in his eyes remained her dad, the same one who taught her to ride a bicycle, supported her in difficult situations, and explained math and physics problems. He was the only one who supported her desire to marry Arthur at 18 when her mother insisted she shouldn't rush. Her father then reminded her that he and her mother had also married almost immediately after their high school graduation. Arthur, sensing that Olivia's mood had improved, decided not to push his luck and asked his father-in-law in a gentle tone, "Peter Michael, maybe we could at least have some tea and sandwiches." The man felt awkward, realizing he was essentially treating his daughter and son-in-law at their expense, and added, "Remember, dear Olivia, what your grandma used to say, serving you your own bacon?" For the first time on this difficult day, Olivia smiled genuinely. "Yes, and I always asked her what bacon meant. Grandma explained it to me every time as if it were the first. It was like a ceremony for us." The smile immediately disappeared from her face. "Dad, I'm sorry, but I really don't feel like eating. There's too much news for today, and tomorrow is a work day. I need to get a good rest before it. And before that, I still need to have a serious talk with Arthur about secrets in family life." Although, judging by Olivia's tone, the main emotional storm had already subsided. Arthur hugged his wife and guiltily lowered his head. Peter Michael began thanking his son-in-law again, not forgetting to put in a good word for him. "Thank you for everything, Arthur. Go, get some rest. Just, daughter, don't be angry with your husband and don't scold him. He is gold. If anyone is to blame, it's me." Olivia left her favorite armchair and froze, unsure how to act next. Should she hug and kiss her dad, whom she hadn't seen for many years, or just say goodbye? Each option felt wrong. Sophia, appearing with a basket of berries, diffused the situation. "Here, I picked these for you and Eleanor Victoria," she said. "As far as I know, she's supposed to be back from the sanatorium soon. We'll manage to figure out where to move by then so we don't get in the way." At the mention of her father's lover's name, anger stirred in Olivia's soul again. "How easily you dispose of other people's property and don't inconvenience yourself," she thought. Arthur put his arm around his wife's waist and gently but firmly pulled her towards the exit to prevent another quarrel. Olivia felt terribly tired from both the surveillance and the news that had overwhelmed her. Peter Michael went to see his daughter and son-in-law to the car, gesturing for Sophia to stay in the house so as not to provoke another outburst of hatred. On the way home, Olivia tried not to express her irritation at the situation. Her husband was faithful to her, and she mentally praised herself for not sharing her suspicions with her mother. However, how to react to her father's partial return was completely unclear. Fearing that his attention to her and the berries Sophia brought were insincere, she thought, generously throwing around other people's property. At home, Arthur tried to anticipate his wife's every wish to improve her mood. After dinner, he finally decided to ask for forgiveness. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Peter Michael right away. I was afraid you'd be angry." "You were right to be afraid," Olivia replied. "Dad's action marked the end of my childhood for me. You know, I thought for a long time that I wouldn't even talk to him, even if he begged to meet. But then I ran into him, and I felt sorry for him. Oh, I'm afraid this Sophia is clearly not living with my father in that partially equipped house with pure intentions." Arthur tried to justify his father-in-law's new companion. "Olivia, you yourself understand that you're not judging her entirely fairly. It seemed to me that Sophia is very tender towards Peter Michael. She cooks food and keeps the dacha tidy. And anyway, my dear, I think you're picking on her. She had a very difficult past, but she hasn't become bitter. Can you imagine? At 18, she had an elderly grandmother, a younger sister, and one younger brother to care for. Despite all this, Sophia managed to get an education herself, albeit a technical one, but in a sought-after profession." "I'm absolutely not interested in the biography of this schemer," Olivia cut in. "Arthur, have you fallen under her influence too? How predictable you men are. A cunning woman pulls the wool over your eyes and you're ready to defend her and ruin families for her. Olivia, you just didn't see how tenderly she cares for Peter Michael, Arthur insisted. It's impossible to fake that. And how she defended him during the attack. But you didn't see it, Olivia reasonably countered. Fear has big eyes, and it's quite possible that the incident was actually completely different. The woman was angry and had no desire to dwell on the topic of her father and his girlfriend, so she concluded, "Okay, that's probably not my business. I'll just tell you one thing. It would probably be wise for my dad and this girlfriend of his to rent a dacha in the same area. I saw a few options." Arthur supported his wife's idea. "Of course, you're right. My mother is used to being alone everywhere, both in the city apartment and at the dacha. She won't like it if someone else is in charge on her territory at the same time as her. I'll post an announcement in the dacha chat now that we'll rent a dacha at least for the rest of the season. I'll be driving Mom anyway, and this way I can also drop in on Peter Michael." "Well, and then, as your dad said, this neighbor's influential friend will return, and maybe the whole situation will be resolved peacefully," Arthur continued. "In general, we have bank accounts, and we could withdraw money and help Peter Michael out." Olivia was indignant. "Are you serious? Dad betrayed me and Mom. You haven't experienced 1/100th of the emotional suffering we did, and now I'm supposed to give him my and your savings? And lose interest too? A big fat nothing for them, not money." "Okay, dear, calm down," Arthur quickly said. "I understand everything. We won't touch the accounts." During conversations and meetings with her mother, Olivia was afraid of accidentally revealing that she knew where her father was. And Eleanor Victoria also kept Peter Michael's secret. They couldn't find a well-appointed dacha to rent, but Arthur was offered an overgrown plot almost at the edge of the area for practically nothing, just paying for water and electricity. The location would have been unsuitable for people who went to the dacha for harvest, but for forced fugitives, it was hard to imagine a better option. Peter Michael and Sophia, gathering their few belongings, moved to the new place. Arthur continued to provide them with everything they needed, and soon this began to greatly irritate Olivia. Firstly, the funds were taken from the family budget, albeit with Arthur's consent. And secondly, and most importantly, the woman felt disgusted having to protect her father and his lover. Olivia felt that by doing so, she was betraying her own mother. Keeping the secret became increasingly difficult, especially since her mother-in-law was planning to celebrate her anniversary at the dacha in early August. Because of this, Olivia worried that her father and Sophia might accidentally be seen by acquaintances or neighbors. This absolutely could not be allowed. A week before the holiday, Olivia asked Arthur to take her to the dacha to have a serious talk with her father. She wanted to firmly explain that the following weekend, he and this golden-legged Sophia should stay in the house practically without leaving. Leaving her husband and mother-in-law, they walked along the dacha lanes. Olivia noticed that many owners of these 600 square meters had long abandoned them, and it was almost impossible to drive along the street due to the overgrown sea buckthorn and lilac bushes. But the lush vegetation provided shade, which was so saving in the abnormally hot August heat. Olivia walked unhurriedly, rehearsing in her mind what and how she would say to her father. Almost at the very gate of the desired plot, the woman heard Sophia's hated voice. Olivia was about to go in and tactlessly interrupt the conversation, but some sixth sense made her stop. The words of her father's lover were completely unexpected. "No, Mark. I told you nothing is working out yet," Sophia was saying. "That awful Olivia is ruining my whole plan. If it weren't for her, I would have squeezed everything out of these idiots by now. And as it is, I have to live in someone else's dacha, go to the toilet outside, wash when the water in the tank heats up. The worst thing is having to look devotedly into the eyes of this elderly idiot. At least because of this heat, any attraction he has to me disappears, and I don't have to go to bed with him. Though it's not even a bed here, it's just outright torment." "Oh, my dear Mark, you probably won't even recognize me after these few months," Sophia continued, changing her intonation. "I haven't been to a spa, I haven't gone to fitness, and I haven't even used face cream. A complete scarecrow. But for this fool Peter, that'll do. I just need to persuade him to sell his share of the apartment here, and then we'll get that housing. Property prices here are almost like the capitals. With that money, considering what we got from the fake robbery, it will be enough for us to leave here and live normally somewhere by the sea." Sophia's intonation shifted from annoyed to tearful, and it was clear how artfully and cynically the woman was manipulating her interlocutor. However, this admiration would have been much stronger if Sophia were an actress on stage. As it was unclear when her father's companion was lying and when she was telling the truth. Olivia was hardly surprised by what she heard. She had suspected something along these lines. Fortunately, she had the sense to turn on the voice recorder on her phone and record the conversation. The recording wasn't perfect, but with effort, everything could be understood. Towards the end of the conversation, her father's lover's speech was a continuous stream of exclamations. She talked about how much she missed Mark, and Olivia became incredibly curious how Sophia would react now if she knew that such compromising evidence existed against her. Olivia restrained herself, waited for her father's lover to finish her conversation, and only then emerged from her hiding place. It was obvious to her that Sophia was after money, but it was difficult to prove. So, she had to provoke the greedy Sophia and show her father the true nature of the woman because of whom he had destroyed a happy family. Deciding that she wouldn't hear anything new, Olivia pushed aside the branches of the bush and stepped out to meet her adversary. "Oh, hello, dear Olivia," Sophia exclaimed, trying to look welcoming. "Please, come in. I've made some soup here. It's tasty, I think. Let me treat you for now, and then Dad will come. He went to the spring, thinking no acquaintances would meet him there." Olivia didn't voice everything she was thinking and only clarified, "And how long has Dad been living with you?" Sophia's answer was brief. "A month." Not much of interest, Olivia thought. Meeting her father on the forest path, Olivia asked, "Listen to me and try to believe me. Sophia is just using you to get money. The attack on you both was staged, and here, at the Dacas, she is hiding with you from a fake danger. Here, listen to the recording I made." Peter Michael listened to the recording of Sophia's cynical speech, and his face changed. He looked pitiful, but Olivia didn't stop the recording. It was better to swallow the bitter pill at once. When the recording ended, her father looked at her with disbelief. "Yes, daughter, modern technology has advanced far. Confess, you just somehow managed to synthesize Sophia's voice to make me quarrel with her." Olivia was disheartened. She realized that her father's feelings for the brazen, unprincipled liar were deep. Any attempts to tell him, or even provide visual evidence that his lover intended to become the owner of elite real estate at others' expense, would be met with displeasure and even arguments. She had to find a way to convince her father, to open his eyes. "Dad, I beg you, don't rush to get money for her," Olivia said. "She'll come up with something else to fleece you. So, I'll set up a test for her. I'll say we've been given money to pay off debts, and you and Arthur will watch her to see how she acts. It would also be good to have a few strong guys help us. I think that's doable." "Dad," Olivia replied, "let's go to our place for now to discuss all the details." Without looking into his overgrown house, Peter Michael headed towards his son-in-law's, accompanied by his daughter. In the evening, the lover again noticed that Peter Michael was cold towards her, but didn't attach much importance to it, especially since this detachment suited her perfectly. Only when the man announced that his son-in-law had agreed to provide the money, but only in cash, did Sophia almost jump for joy. "My love, my sunshine, now we can return to our usual way of life. Isn't it a miracle?" Arthur smiled. So far, everything was going exactly as they had planned. Thanks to a friend of his, he managed to enlist former Special Forces soldiers to participate in the arrest of the fraudsters. When Sophia's accomplices arrived at the dacha and squeezed with difficulty through the thickets, the brave guys immediately apprehended them. They treated Sophia very delicately, and Peter Michael, stepping close, announced, "You, Sophia, despite your wise name, wanted to deceive me a second time, but you didn't consider that you talked too much and in the wrong places. Fortunately, Olivia overheard your frank conversation. So, if you don't want to end up in prison for fraud and drag these fools down with you, Then pay me back what you stole from me with the help of your friends. Sophia had no choice but to write a receipt for the amount she had appropriated. A weary Peter Michael asked Arthur to give him a ride to the city and hurried to his wife, buying a luxurious bouquet of flowers on the way. Veronica, it's as if cold water was poured on me, he said, holding out the bouquet. Let's try to start our relationship anew. Veronica Stevens smiled at her ex-husband, and he thought he had already found the key to her heart. But the woman suddenly announced, "Actually, I've already started a new love story, and you don't fit into it. So, if you want to be fair, give me back my share. After all, during the divorce, you took almost everything you brought in, and I didn't fight for a single thing. Since they were important to you, you took them. And now you suddenly realized you undersold yourself. You're left with nothing, although you do have the sum Sophia returned."